Well, the surfer. Now, you may have seen posters for the surfer. The poster has this sort of orange glow sun with Nick Cage and a surfboard, and it looks like a very 70s poster. And there are two quotes on it. One of them is compellingly fraught, and the other one is fabulously bonkers. So, okay, we know where we are. So, The Surfer is the new movie by Lorcan Finnegan. Now, Lorcan Finnegan's the Irish filmmaker who made Vivarium, for which
I remember
you
that.
interviewed Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots. I can't remember whether I was part of that interview or not.
I remember they said they came into the studio. So,
They did.
yes.
They did. So in Vivarium, which is this kind of surreal satire, which I think I liked more than you did.
That is certainly true. I liked them very much.
Yeah, no, they did, and they were good. They gave good account of the film. I liked the film more than you did. So that was basically about this young couple looking for a dream home, and then they find themselves. They go up to this neighborhood, which I think is called Nearby or Far Away or something. And once they get into it, they find themselves stuck in this little ticky box. Little boxes, exactly like that. And then they're stuck there and they can't get out. And then there's an alien baby arrives and they have to look after it. And a vivarium is a place in which you put insects and that sort of stuff. And so that's what they're in. So there was an interview with Lorcan Finnegan who described Vivarium as addressing, quote, the fantasy version of reality that we strive towards, in which consumerism is consuming us, and in which the promise of an ideal life, ideal living is, quote, the bait that leads many into a trap. Now, some of those phrases apply to The Surfer, which is based on a script by Thomas Martin. And it's the center of it is a man's desire to own a house. So there is a clear similarity here. In the case of Vivarium, they're looking for a dream house. In the case of this, Nick Cage's character, who is unnamed, the characters are sort of archetypes, it's unnamed, is desperate to get this house, which is an idyllic it overlooks an idyllic Australian surfing beach. It's like a grand villa, and it was once his home, and now it's on the market, and he wants to get it. It's the family home. He wants to get it and get it back. So we meet Nick Cage's character. He's in a suit and shades in a Lexus. He's on his phone, urging his broker and his bank to close the deal on this house, which is the thing upon which he has set his sights. And then he gets his son, the kid, out of school, and he takes him to the beach, and he says, yeah, she says, shouldn't I be in school? She says, no, we're going to do an important thing. We're going to surf. We're going to go down to this beach and surf. And the reason that he wants the son to come and surf is because he wants the son to look up from the surf and see the house, because it's the best vantage point to see this house, which overlooks this dreamy beach, is from the sea. But when they get there, they find the beach is guarded by locals. And again, on the poster, there's an image of a wrecked car with locals only written on it. And there's this gang of guys led by masculinity guru Scally, who basically tell Cage, don't live here, don't surf here. And Scally is this kind of advocate of toxic masculinity who has this kind of suffer surfer mantra, and all the brood appear to have this branding on them. They're all bros together. Meanwhile, in the car park overlooking the beach, and incidentally, the kid goes off. In the car park overlooking the beach, there is this sort of local derelict, this local bum he's got this wrecked Subaru that he's living in. And he appears to be sort of deranged, but he insists that Scally killed his dog and took his son, and he's got this kind of grudge. And then what happens is that Nick Cage, he can't leave because the battery in his Lexus goes flat. So he's stuck in the car park overlooking the beach. His son goes off. So above him is the house that he desperately wants to get back, in inverted commas. Below him is the beach onto which he cannot go because it's, there are all these surfer dudes everywhere. And the police come along and tell him that he has to leave, but he can't leave because the battery's gone flat. And after after a day or so of hanging around there, he starts to look so bedraggled that he resembles the homeless guy who lives in the Subaru, to the point that the policeman thinks that he's the guy that lives in the Subaru. Meanwhile, down on the beach, the gang have absolutely no intention of giving him back his surfboard, which they have stolen, and the police aren't sympathetic either. Here's a clip.
I want my surfboard.
Okay. I'm sure it's just a mix-up. Is it one of these?
Dude, That's my board, and I want it back.
Listen, mate, I think you've been out in the sun too long.
They took it from me last night. They threatened me with a broken bottle.
Why don't you take a drink of water?
I don't want anything from you. I want my board.
So you're saying they took this from you last night?
Was I not clear?
Well, it's just the problem is, and I can tell you myself, that old board's been up there for as long as I can remember.
So he's suddenly in this kind of alternate reality in which nobody believes him. His life is falling apart. He's gone from being a bloke wearing sunglasses and a suit to this bedraggled guy whose card won't start. He hasn't got any phone charge. He can't get in touch with his broker, so he can't close the deal on the house, and everything falls apart. Now, look, I am a big fan of surf movies. I remember I did a thing down in Cornwall some years ago. This goes Surfposium, which was like a discussion about surf movies. Whether it's Big Wednesday or Point Break or documentaries like Endless Summer, or actually there's a really good documentary, Endless Winter, as well. And even that remember that weird film Blue Juice that everyone kind of laughed at the time, but now has got a bit of a cult following. Anyway, the reason that I like them is because there's that sort of combination of with surfing, the sort of the visuals of surfing, which is amazing. There's a reason there's so many films about surfing is because, surfing looks great on screen. And also this kind of cosmic philosophizing of the kind that Patrick Swayze does in Point Break. And in the case of this, that cosmic philosophizing turns into something, the kind of Iron John toxic masculinity with a little bit of Dostoevsky's The Double. And I'm not saying that as a joke. There is a whole Dostoevskian thing going on in the background of this, what was it called, absolutely bonkers Nick Cage movie. So at first, you think it's going to be like Falling Down. You think that the thing is going to be, he's a suited businessman. He turns up. This is the place where he has a right to be there. They see him off. And at some point, he's just driven to the point when he just goes and does something violent. But it's not that at all. What happens is far more sort of freakily bonkers. And once again, the central idea is that this lust for this dream home, this absolute dedication to this dream home just causes everything to fall apart. And essentially what happens is you see the wheels coming off his life in real time. And it's a very convincing transition from him being this besooted businessman to him being this absolutely kind of degenerate wastrel who's hallucinating in the sun and is dehydrated and is essentially going completely crazy. The whole thing's got this very burnished retro feel. If you look at that poster, it's got that very 70s feeling from the typeface, and everything about the movie has got that kind of glowing burnished feel. Nick Cage is in his element. There's one thing, do you remember years and years ago when Cage was sort of first making his mark? He was in Vampire's Kiss, and there's the whole thing about the cockroach eating thing, because there's a scene in this which sort of seems to refer back to that. And I was watching it thinking, Nick Cage is probably in the most entertaining part of his career at the moment, because he's made, Mandy and Longlegs and Pig and Dream Scenario, and he's kind of moved into this golden age of cult movie stardom. And this is a great vehicle for his talent. I mean, he won an Oscar years and years and years ago for Leaving Las Vegas. And now he's carved this weird little niche in which you have these odd, strange sort of psychodrama potboilers in which he gets to do the thing that he does. And I really enjoyed it.
How would I recognize a Dostoevsky moment if it came along?
The Double, the story of The Double.
No.
Well, the story of The Double is kind of like it's like the classic doppelganger. There's a guy who meets his double and which is a horrifying thing, absolutely horrifying. There's this other person who appears to be living his life better than he is. There's quite an interesting film adaptation of it which I reviewed actually on our show by Richard Ayoade, which weirdly enough starred Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so there is this, but the Dostoevskian thing with The Double is it's the divided self. It's kind of, I mean, obviously it wasn't written with that in mind, but I think there's a clear nod to that in this script.
So when it gets to that bit, you should say quietly, but certainly so the person next door can hear, I think that's a reference to Dostoevsky.
Yes.
And then everyone will go,
and then
wow.
you will get punched in the face, and then that will be the end of that.